Thanks to the Supreme Court, we now live in a country where it's easier to access a machine gun than an abortion. I'm just so effing tired of the Christo-fascist wing of the Supreme Court, from their upside-down flags, Jesus flags, J6 flags, hundreds of millions of dollars in gifts and trips and tuition and mortgage payments, all paid for by a bunch of old white dudes with a bazillion bucks, knowing the threat to their once ironclad hold on supremacy is real. So they'll do whatever they gotta do, including buying themselves a few Supreme Court justices who happen to believe they are above the law. In case you missed it, yesterday, they decided that women in this country could continue to have access to abortion medication, which wasn't really a case they even should have heard to begin with. And then they left the door wide open for future challenges. And then today, they reversed the ban on bump stocks. Bump stocks, which make it possible for someone to fire between 400 and 800 rounds in 1 minute. Bump stocks, which helped the Las Vegas shooter kill 60 people and wound 413 more in 11 minutes. Any asshole can go out and buy a bump stock now. And you know what? That fills me with so much rage. No average American needs a weapon that can fire 400 to 800 rounds in 1 minute. And by the way, for the Republicans who say they back the blue so much they're doing cartwheels over a Supreme Court ruling which will put the lives of our police officers in increased danger. Welcome back to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Reed Galen. Hi, Reed.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Well, thank you for coming back. I would have you on every week if I could, because I tell you all the time, I think you're one of the smartest people out there. Pisses me off.
Well, keep telling me that. I'll keep coming back. So
okay, good. All right. That sounds like a deal. I want to compliment you on your shirt. For folks who are just listening to this and not seeing it in all its glory, can you just describe it a little bit? Because it's pretty.
Sure. This is a classic rain spooner Hawaiian shirt with American flags on it. So, I'm taking both the flag and the Hawaiian shirt back from MAGA and the Boogaloo Boys. So happy summer, everybody.
Yeah, I love that flag idea that you just touched on, in all seriousness, because you put out some content recently that really resonated with me, all about reclaiming the flag and taking it back. And I am someone who, like you, proudly flies an American flag on my home, and I've done so for as long as I've lived here. But let's talk about that, because why should we cede that space or any of that to them?
I actually got the idea for Take Back the Flag a couple of years ago when I was in California at an event, 40 or 50 people. I asked, how many people fly the American flag outside their home? Maybe a couple of hands go up. Why? I don't want people to think I'm a Republican. I don't want people to think I'm a Trump supporter. Well, I don't understand, Joe, why any of us, whether or not we're Republicans, Democrats, Independents, want to cede that symbol, the symbol of our nation, to one particular faction, especially one that perverts it so much. The stars represent something, the stripes represent something, the blue field represents something, all of it the best of the United States of America. And for me, I think it makes no sense whatsoever to allow MAGA, Trump, whoever it is, to claim that symbol for their own, especially when, they, as you said before we started, sometimes they make the stripes M16s, or they put Sam Alito's face on it, or they have one where it's all black, right? And that's what they call, Joe, the no quarter flag. And if somebody's flying that means in the event of a civil war, if they believe you are an enemy, they will give you no quarter. They will kill you. And so this gets into some pretty dark and kooky places in a hurry for something that should be proudly flown by all of us.
Yeah. And I mean, my dad was a Republican until George W. Bush, but he was a Republican. I grew up with a Republican. My dad and I would disagree on a million trillion things, as you and I probably disagreed on a million trillion things over the years. But one thing that we always agreed on was that we loved this country. My dad was an immigrant, came here from Lebanon. He believed in the shining city on a hill, and he believed in the promise of America, and he instilled that belief in me. And again, as much as we diverged on other issues, we could agree on that. And there is this idea that Democrats don't, that Republicans push, when, to me, it's so offensive because the reason I get up every morning is, well, my kids, but because I love this country so much. And I do believe in working towards perfecting this union. And so that's another one of their narratives that they push, which is, again, so hypocritical, because I remember watching someone replace the American flag on January 6th with the Trump flag at the Capitol. So don't tell me I don't love America.
No, but this is, unfortunately for our Democratic friends, another example of when faced with confrontation, they don't lean into it, they run away from it, which is, well, you know, the American flag could stand for this, or the American flag could stand for that. Or, you know, what about the founding of the country, because so many founding fathers owned slaves? Like, all of those things are true, right? But at the end of the day, symbols matter in politics. They matter immensely. And I think it's an important, just to broaden out the discussion a little bit, Joe, Republicans fight politics differently than Democrats. Republicans fight in narrative and storytelling. And the American flag is a big component of that. And if you're going to let the, you know, in my case, you know, my former party, now who I consider the bad guys, to take advantage of that, they're going to push into that vacuum that, yes, the Democratic Party does not believe in the United States. The Democratic Party hates the United States. It's a bunch of Marxist, communist, wacko, blah, 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 blah. And because no one on the Democratic side of the aisle is willing to stand up and say that's not true, Republicans now fly flags and too many Democrats don't.
As somebody who, I hope you appreciate this, I don't do that. It's so infuriating.
That's not you.
No, it's so infuriating to me. Like if they're going to lie and push these bullshit narratives on me that I know are not true, I'm always going to stand up and say no. And I know you, I don't know if you know her, but Jess Piper, if you don't know her, you need to know her. She's from Missouri. Okay. She's badass. She's the same as me. Like you want us punch us, you want us to kick us, keep us down. We're just going to stand up and get louder. And Democrats for far too long, to your point, have been afraid of going back at them when they do that. But we have no choice now. And I think Biden, he's gotten better. The campaign has gotten better. He personally has gotten better at doing that, at going back at them, as we saw at the State of the Union, where he was, goading them a little bit. But why do Democrats think? Why do they, or maybe less now than they did, but why do they think they have to go high when they go low?
Because I like to say this: Democrats are, typically better people than Republicans in politics. As a young Republican, younger Republican, not a young Republican like in a group or something. We're taught that it's just win, baby. Right? That's how you campaign. Now, that used to be within some limit, right? It could always be brutal. And American politics has always been brutal, right? This is not the partisanship we're seeing, and the partisan divides, I think, are far sharper now than we've seen before. But politics as a sport in this country has always been very, very rough and tumble. And we understood that, as Mitch McConnell famously said, winners make policy and losers go home. You may not like the messenger, but the message is right. And if you're not willing to do everything you can within the bounds of your own morality, the law, and everything else to win, then I can't help you. Right. But I'll tell you this, Trump, MAGA, all these people, they will do whatever it takes to win. And as we saw, as you mentioned briefly, January 6th, they might do things that are extra legal, extrajudicial, if they don't win again, which I don't think they will. But Democrats need to stiffen that spine a little bit and understand that, these are Chicago rules we're playing by, right? If they bring a knife to the fight, you don't bring a paperclip.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too. I do believe you have to meet them where they are, and you certainly don't bring a paperclip also. But speaking of like new rules in a way, first of all, I can't believe you're considering not voting for Hunter. Like, that is so disappointing because, just because he's a convicted felon, I don't know why that's disqualifying, but for real. Obviously Hunter Biden is not the candidate, but this is the best they have. But how, I've asked you this in the past, but how they are continuing to support him, but how are we talking about a convicted felon? How are we talking about that being the nominee? How is this normal?
It's hard to believe this, but I think sometime next month, it'll be 9 years since Donald Trump came down the escalator. 9 years. So the majority of a decade now, we've been dealing with this. And so, that's a long time for poison to seep in, and for the followers of Trump who are still rabid and more rabid, and the politicians around him. to decide, in their mind, they look in the mirror, they rationalize, like, this is the way. You have some people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, she's a true believer. But then you have a lot of the, J.D. Vances or Elise Stefanik's. It's a means to an end. This is the easiest way to power, to, to assuage their ambition, to climb the ranks of the party. And look, we've seen going against Trump as a Republican now, who's still in office that's done that, right?
Like two people.
Right. Think about that. In the immediate aftermath of Trump's conviction, Larry Hogan, a very moderate Republican from Maryland, said on his Twitter, we should respect the decision of the jury. And Chris LaCivita, Trump's campaign manager, said, your campaign's over, right? So, what we've also seen is that there is a lot of, what's it called? Preemptive, I don't know, there's a word for it, but basically giving up before you fought. There was a lot of that. And there's even more just getting in line, which is you see what they did, what they're going to do to Hogan. They'll probably do other things to Hogan to make an example of him, to purge him, as they did to Cheney, as they did to Kinzinger, as they did to so many people.
And that's why congressmen like mine, Kane Jr., they don't stick their necks out there and they vote along to, what did they do with Merrick Garland? Held him in contempt of whatever Congress, I forget whatever sham ridiculousness, right, to borrow their word, but they just go along. They just go along. They weren't voting or compelling them to put Ukraine aid on the floor, even though they wanted it. It was really important. And then the minute it happened, they're all in Ukraine. And it's like, but you should have stood up and spoken out and been honest and truthful in real time and didn't. And that's just such cowardice to me. Like, what are you doing there if you can't do that?
Well, and, for guys like Kane or Don Bacon from Nebraska or Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, they're in some ways to me, if you've gone full MAGA, at least I know where you stand.
Yeah.
But the people that you're talking about, like, they know better and they do it anyway. And the other part of this too, and this is where, I could be criticized for my lack of grace, Joe, is they also provide the last bastion of normalcy and legitimacy for this party. And I don't know that they're smart enough to think about it in that context, but I am. And to me, that's what's upsetting, is that you can parade those guys around and say, well, look, Kane's normal, Bacon's normal, Fitzpatrick is normal, but they're just useful idiots.
Yeah, it's a breed that is slowly, becoming extinct, but
right,
of their own making. They do still exist. And I think I've asked you this 100 times. I don't understand why they don't talk to each other and say, well, maybe it's too late now. Maybe their numbers are so dwindled, but why they didn't talk to each other and say, there's actually more of us. I call them Team Sanity, not so much when they're Republicans, but still, there's more of us than there are these crazies that are going to end up shooting us all in the foot in the end. So why don't we stand up and as a group push back?
Well, I think that was a conversation that probably needed to have happened 6 years ago, or immediately in the immediate aftermath of January 6th, where the Republicans in the U.S. House and the Republicans in the U.S. Senate could have rid us of Trump forever, and they refused to do so. Right, especially in the U.S. Senate. People say, oh, well, McConnell didn't have the votes to convict him. I think that's a lot of revisionist history. I think he did, but he wanted to be majority leader more than he wanted to rid the country of Trump, and that says everything you need to know about him.
Yeah, and then he kicked that down the can down the road, so that leaving it up to the courts. And now that it's up to the courts, they're saying it shouldn't be up to the courts. It should be up to the voters, when it should have been up to the Senate to make sure that he couldn't actually run for office again. But they didn't, because Mitch McConnell wanted to be majority leader, and now he's minority leader, and he's basically like Reek at this point. He's a shell of his former self, which is fine by me, but still, it's almost as if, and we're seeing this with the Hunter thing too, it's like they have to have conspiracy theories to have conspiracy theories. They just keep building in new excuses to create this permission structure for crazy. Because like when Hunter was convicted, what they started doing, which is not at all surprising, but still nonetheless insane, is, well, this is actually orchestrated by Joe Biden so that Joe Biden can make it look like there isn't a two-tier justice system, and he's not weaponizing, the government against his adversaries because he's willing to convict his own son. Like, what? Like the pretzels that they have to bend them, the contortions to be able to accommodate that kind of crazy.
Well, I think about it this way, I use this metaphor or analogy. I always get those mixed up. Not to make light of addiction, but they have to keep the true believers high on the supply. You've got to keep the crazy train running. As soon as the crazy train comes to a stop, if somebody in Fox News took a big pair of scissors and like cut whatever cable connects Fox News to the rest of the world, and suddenly those people didn't have it, you'd see a whole bunch of people come back to reality in a big hurry, right? But you have to keep them in that world. And that's, look, it's Fox, it's Bannon, it's all of the wacko podcasters. It's the Sinclair thing that just broke. I think NBC just broke about, Sinclair is pushing these messages into all the local radio stations, or excuse me, all the local television stations they own. It is a 360-degree, 24/7 operation to keep Republicans, especially conservative Republicans, I don't even know what that means anymore, in a separate information bubble. Because as soon as they come back to reality, they start to, and there's history on this. As soon as they escape that world, they sort of have this Rip Van Winkle moment, Joe, like, what was I doing? What was I thinking?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know I have family members like that where I wish I could cut that cable, but they are very effective at flipping things upside down. I mean, think about all of the revisionist history that's been successful. Now, January 6th, the rioters, or whatever you want to call them, I call them domestic terrorists, but now they're not just hostages, which was really crazy. Now they're warriors, right? And there's stats on how many people in the party believe that it was a peaceful protest, but you take that, and I mean, it's to just bring them along to that point. So eventually he'll bring them along pretty easily to the point that they were warriors, and warriors is a very different connotation than hostages. Warriors means that they were there fighting, right?
Right.
For something, right? Something that was right, fundamentally right. And so now you're reframing it not just as they were victims, but that they were, fighters for him that were not vanquished, but only temporarily tamped down.
Because remember, if you believe that the whole 2020 was stolen anyway, then those people were there doing what was the right thing, which was they were trying to take back a stolen election and a stolen country for Donald Trump. The reverse of that is that those people also believe that we live in an occupied country, right? That
right.
Joe Biden is the illegal president, or, there's body doubles or whatever. Like, there's no end to the insanity, and there's no end to the people, there's demand side of things and supply side of these things. And this is really the Republican insanity is really a supply side operation. The more they provide, the more people pick it up.
Yeah, the last time you were on, you mentioned something about these constant hits of dopamine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that they just keep needing more and more and more. I mean, we had people walking around in shorts, pardon me, that said real men wear diapers at Trump rallies. This is how fucked up and crazy they've become, because there was all that stuff about how he was farting in court. I mean, like, that I even said those sentences out loud about somebody who could potentially be the president.
I'm glad I already ate lunch. Yeah.
I'll leave it to me to gross people out. But it's like, it's just, they just keep upping the crazy, and it all sticks. And that's when you're like, how does it all stick? And in all of it sticking, all of the stuff that Joe Biden's actually done, which is true, gets lost. And then the mainstream media says, none of Biden's accomplishments are getting through. The American people they don't see it. They don't feel it. They don't know it. They don't believe it.
Well, I mean, that is true, at least according to public survey research. But this is also why you have campaigns, Joe. Yeah. And this is why you have a White House and you have an administration. Like, it is their job to go tell the story. As I think I said, a few minutes ago, like, these people, the MAGA people, Trump, like, they will fill any vacuum they find. Don't give them any. That's why you have to stay in their face. That's why, what's his name? Johnny McEntee. He's one of Trump's lead goons, right? He'll be the sort of enforcer in chief.
Guy? Was he the weird shoe guy? Yeah.
I don't know. They're all weird.
Yeah.
It's always hard to find shoes for cloven hooves anyway. But he does these like little TikTok things that are very, very popular. Right.
Oh,
and they're just trolly as hell. Right.
Yeah.
So I started doing a couple of them, basically just ripping off the idea. Right. I don't care. And I'll tell you, I mean, people like them. That's great. But what makes me happiest, Joe, is the MAGA tears that come from it, the raging in the comments. Right. And you see it too. There's like, show me the underlying crime Trump was convicted of. I'm like, I'm not going to answer you. Like, that's it. And that's the beauty of it, though, is like and this is where I think, again, going back to how Democrats need to fight, you want MAGA mad, they're going to be mad. You want MAGA mad on your terms, not on their terms, because they are overreactive and they're already crazy. And the more you make them react, right, the crazier they get. And even for some of the people who watch everything, they're going, okay, that's enough for me, right? Yeah. It pushes Trump into crazy land too. And so, like, as we're recording this, Trump apparently said that the host city of the Republican National Convention, Milwaukee, is a terrible city or a hellhole or something, right?
Horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, a horrible city. Thank you. Well, now you've got the Trump campaign denying it, and you've got congressmen giving 4 different answers to what he said, and then other people in the room going, nope, that's absolutely what he said, right? Now you have to go. The Wisconsin Democratic Party should be running that on radio, should be running that on television, should be running that on digital. People in Milwaukee, city fathers, council people, Milwaukee Bucks, right? Anybody, right, should be saying, Donald Trump, if you don't like it, don't come here. Republicans, if you don't like our city, don't come here. And make them, take responsibility for what Trump said. That's what you got to do, because you have to latch these people together. Yeah. Right. I mean, longtime, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, Rick Wilson, says everything Trump touches dies. Yeah. You want them not able to put any space between him and them, because he is a Tasmanian devil, Joe. Once he bites you, the bacteria takes over, and it's only a matter of time.
Right. And not only that, but then you put them constantly on defense, right? Yes. They're constantly back on their heels. Something Lincoln Project was so fucking good at was getting Trump all riled up. So when he's back on his heels, then he's a really caged creature. And then then I'm just like full crazy on display. But when they're back on their heels and playing like, well, he didn't say that he meant, but well, actually he did say that, or he didn't say that at all. And then now they can't push out their vitriol,
right? Because remember that for all of the other things we dislike about Trump, he is very good at this. Yeah. Right. He is very, very. I know I'm not complimenting him. It's an anthropological observation. Yeah. It's a laboratory observation, not a compliment. But the people around him and the people beneath him are not. No. Right. He's a natural at it, whatever, this natural evil and sort of lizard brain comes from. The rest of these people are not. They're not good at this stuff.
Yeah. And that's why we see so many times where it's so sloppy and like it just, you look chaotic and not cohesive. And it should be pretty simple for us to keep beating them back. But because their stuff is so like salacious and sexy and exciting and conspiracy laden and all of that stuff, and also reinforcing of some pretty deeply held hate and resentment and anger and fear and all of that, they have all the like top tier, like pinging people's hitting them with the dopamine, pinging their brains constantly. And the Democrats are like, well, but we have, the world's greatest economy at the moment, or we have more jobs. And it's like, oh, well, that's nice too. But it just, it doesn't sizzle in the same way. And that is something Trump's also very good at, sadly.
Well, but you have to, it's not enough to say we have the greatest economy in the world once. Right. You have to say it 800 million times over the course of the next 100 or so days, right? It's not, we often overcomplicate politics, Joe, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that complicated. Find a message that works and say it 80 million times. Yeah. Right. Say it to the right people, and then get your people to the polls. Right. Like, it does not have to be some, highfalutin, data driven, we're going to crisscross these people and that. Look, you know who that helped? Hillary Clinton. How'd that work out? Right. So like,
went for a walk in the woods.
simplify. Don't complexify, if that's a word.
Oh, complexify.
Complexify. Sounds like something Ross Perot. We got to stop complexifying.
That's a good Ross Perot. I was thinking it's like
I went to high school down the street from his house. I drove by his house every day on the way to high school.
Did you do his accent when you drove by? Hey, Ross
I did.
Perot.
I did.
I did. Complexify sounds like complexity. I said complexify. It sounds like like a soul song. Complexify. Yeah.
Well, as everybody knows, I have a lot of soul. So
yes, we're both quite white, although I am half Lebanese, but I still
I am
don't.
as I am
Yeah.
as middle-aged and white as they come.
Yeah,
So
I am infamous for my bad dancing, but I digress because one of the things I would say just on that and before we move on is that the other piece of what you just said about not complexifying it to TM
mhm.
that word, but is that other thing you said, which is that we have to still poke them enough so that they're always on defense and they're always rattled. Because I personally, I get my rocks off. I'm not gonna lie. I love my dear Mon Pa MAGA. And I'll call them smooth brains, weapon grade stupids, you name it. I'll ask them questions. I mean,
Right.
I'll say, like, I know that facts are about as useful to you as a thesaurus and a sheep you can't fuck. And I'll tell you what, they fucking hate it. They
Yeah.
hate it and they go ape shit. And I just sit there and they won't watch this, or maybe they will just to hate fuck or hate jerk off. I don't know what they do. Um, feed it to me angrily. I don't know. But, and that's a sad, sick, and scary thought. But anyway, they hate it, but it gets them off of their own stupid bullshit lies. And then they got to deal with attacking my fingers and my face, my nose, my weight, my hair, whatever it is. Now they're doing that. And then I get to sit back and watch. And maybe they're mostly bots and trolls. I don't really care. I think we have to do the thing you said. We have to go at them, bait them, and keep it simple and repeat the top line stuff, the real stuff, the substantive stuff, the kitchen table stuff, the abortion rights stuff, all that. But you have to also, you have to play a little dirty.
Well, look, I think this is the difference. Like, I don't see it as playing dirty. Like, these are the rules of the game,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
I didn't make the rules of the game. I wish these weren't the rules of the game. I wish we could have civilized debates. I wish that every congressional district did a debate a week in which all 875,000 constituents in each district watched each one of them. That's not how it works. People got jobs, they got lives, and they don't, frankly, the whole idea of having representative democracy is that you don't have to worry about this stuff every day. Right? That you trust that the person you hired to do the job will go do it. And you know, that's not where we are anymore. And we are in an eyeball and information economy, as you know. Like, people are going to watch us, people are going to listen to us, they are going to tweet this, they're going to retweet it, they're going to share it with their friends. This is how the world works. And compelling gets you more eyeballs. Boring gets you left behind. And so I wish that it was all substance all the time. I wish we could write policy papers on this and that and those things. And that is like a world that doesn't exist. And frankly, it's really never existed. It might exist on, you know, in state capitals or on Capitol Hill, right, as you're debating the finer points of policy or something like that. But the truth is that politics as an institution in this country is a binary choice. You win or you lose, right? And I know that it's impolitic and it's out of fashion to see things in a binary fashion in black and white, Joe, but like, that's how it is. Are you going to do the thing? You know, there's a great book by a guy named Richard Ben Kramer about the 1988 election. It's called What It Takes. It's all in the title there. And to me, my takeaway is, are you going to be the person or the candidate or the campaign who has what it takes to do the thing that will cause you to win? Right? That will allow you to win or will get you to win. And some people, you know, Mitt Romney once said there are more important things than winning elections. Well, you're retiring. So, you know, you're willing to, you can say that. You've also lost plenty of elections. So like, it's, you know, but for me, it's like the future of the country and my family. So like, no, I'm going to do everything I can, right, within the bounds of the rules that we do play by. But I'm not going to feel bad about taking, you know, a baseball bat to MAGA or to the Republican elephant. Why would I feel bad about that? They do it to us in a heartbeat.
Oh my gosh. And just a little tiny like example of that where I personally was like, so what, was when Jasmine Crockett said that Marge Green was a bad bitch built back, I just can't remember all the B's, but B6, right? Like, so she went back at her for her looks essentially, which yeah, maybe that's not exactly like what you would hope for as far as congressional decorum goes, but these are the new rules, right? So like, you know, Marge already dragged her for eyelashes. And as someone who loves eyelashes and false eyelashes, I was super offended. So I was really glad that Jasmine went back at her. But Jasmine got shit for not, for like, not everybody, but like a lot of people gave her shit for just, oh, well, did we really go there? Do we have to be like them?
Yeah.
And yeah, you
and
do.
This is, to me, this is, I don't curse on podcasts for it, but this is what I'm talking about. This is the bullshit I'm talking about. Representative Crockett, Congresswoman Crockett goes on CNN and Jake Tapper gives her a hard time.
Yeah.
Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene made a barely veiled racist remark to a black woman attorney colleague in the United States House of Representatives. And that woman, who takes umbrage, is ready to fire back. And the person who's attacked, it's her fault?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit. Jasmine Crockett had every right to defend herself and remind people that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a horrible little homunculus who needs to climb back out of whatever fucking hole in Rome, Georgia she climbed out of. And I'll tell you this, the problem, we want to get rid of this kind of act, get rid of Greene. We need more Crockett's, not less. We need more young women who are going into public office, and when opposed like that, defend themselves and defend themselves strenuously. It's bullshit that a 60-year-old white guy on CNN tells a young black woman not to defend herself. Bullshit.
Wow. Thank you for that, because amen, first of all. Secondly, homunculus is my new favorite word to describe her, but also all of that. And you know what? Democrats have been really slow and behind the Republicans in coming to realize that this is, and Jake Tapper's still playing a little bit of, old school both sides bullshit, but we have Dan Goldman, we have Moskowitz, we have Crockett, we have Raskin, we have AOC. We have Democrats who are finally starting to understand that this is how we do this now. And we're not going to let him.
What's his name from California too?
Who?
Swalwell.
Oh my God, I love Swalwell. He was on my podcast.
No, they are fighters. They
Yes.
are fighters, and I love watching them because
Yes.
they, what Jasmine Crockett did that day was take a sledgehammer to Marjorie Taylor Greene. But the thing I like about most of them, and Crockett included, is that they're able to take a scalpel to these people, and they carve them up before they even know what's happened. And then, to your point, these soft bone creatures, these smooth brain morons, they don't even know what's happened. Like, they know something bad is happening to them, but they don't know what. And then by the time it's over, they just sort of stare blankly into space. Right. Which is not probably much different from how they spend most of their day, but like, it's brilliant. And we need more of them. We need more of them, not less.
Agreed. And they somehow also, especially Raskin and Swalwell, all of them, they somehow also managed to weave in substance and facts and truth and records and receipts, all while also giving us that kind of red meat that we so crave because we're tired of watching our guys get beat to a pulp.
Right.
So it very much always feels to me. And now we've got Swazi in there, which is a whole nother level of, I believe, like what we need, team sanity, the adults in the room. And Swazi isn't the kind of guy who's necessarily going to do what a Swalwell or an AOC or even a Crockett's going to do. But he told Chip Roy, like essentially without saying it, to shut the fuck up on the House floor because Chip was whining about something and Swazi just kept saying that's just not how you get stuff done. And he's right.
And just remember, should any of us forget that before Chip Roy was a member of Congress from Texas, where he's not from, I think he's from Virginia, so he's a carpetbagger anyway. He was Ted Cruz. He was Ted Cruz's chief of staff. So just to give you a sense of where he started. Yeah, I mean, he's just gross. I mean, the only thing he's good for is that he gives so many great comments about how stupid the Republicans are and how they don't get anything done. Like, he is sort of a gift in that regard.
Give me one thing. One thing. I can go back to my constituents and say we did. Give me one thing. It's like cut, add, print.
And again, that's the kind of thing where, again, if I'm running a Democratic congressional race in a target district of 20 or 30, whatever they got on the list this year, like, I'm running that.
Yeah.
Right. Here's what Republicans think about how they've done. Right. Boom. Right. Don Bacon. Do you agree? Right.
Bingo. Marge gave us one of those too a while back. And I remember she was like, Biden wants to feed your kids.
Right. He wants to feed your kids, protect your kids, educate your kids, keep your workplace safe. I mean, the nerve. He
wants to finish what FDR started.
Right. Like, all right.
Yeah. Oh no. Like cut, that was an ad. And of course, Donald Trump the other day said when they were out in 100-degree heat in Las Vegas, when the people the day before, 2 days before in Arizona were all falling over dying, he's like, don't die on me. Well, actually, I don't care. I don't care if you die. I just need your vote.
Right.
And he is not lying. So cut, make an ad. That's
it's probably the most honest thing he said in years. I don't care about you. I just want your vote.
Yeah. And then they hear it and they're like, that sounds, did he say that?
Did he say that out loud?
Right. And then they go buy their, snuggie, MAGA snuggie or whatever. Or, well, and then they wouldn't have done it in that heat. I guess they'd buy an ice snuggie. But yeah. Well, we covered a lot of ground about that stuff. And I guess the real quick pivot would be, I want to talk about, for me, I'm sure you saw it. This is another place where I feel like your political ideology and mine probably overlapped more than other things. I
would venture to say that I have moved closer to you than you have to me. Although I think there's a lot of us Americans who are all sort of coalescing.
Yeah.
I'm not a Republican. I'm not going to be a Democrat, but I'm never going to be a Republican again. But I will say that this has been, and we could spend more time after we beat Donald Trump talking about this. But I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think, well, this is the one. Okay. Actually, that's a good way to sort of set this up, because this is the one where I can be in the same tent as Liz effing Cheney, which is
right.
crazy to me, but still. So Biden, as you saw, I'm sure, was recently in Normandy to mark D-Day. And I thought, and I know why, he wanted to sort of evoke Ronald Reagan giving a very famous speech there as well. But I thought what he did was tremendous. I thought his speech was tremendous. I thought all of his interactions with world leaders, with the surviving veterans, was tremendous. I thought he had an opportunity there where he could really highlight what it is that we're all in this tent about. And that is that he is the candidate who is going to carry the torch of democracy forward versus the dictator on day one. And I feel like as impactful and important and powerful and, to me, nonpartisan as all of that was, it somehow got lost, or it was muted. He's at the G7 now, and the same ideas are true. The world needs to know that we have their backs, that we won't abandon them, like Trump said. The idea of protecting democracy, though, this is where you and I, Liz Cheney, and even Adam Kinzinger, et cetera, we can all agree. But is that message reaching the average American voter? Did they understand
that? It's a good question. I think the answer is probably no, at least in that particular instance. But again, this is what goes back to having a campaign that operates effectively and efficiently, which is at some point, and when I say these things, like, it's not me, sitting in the stands just going, you should do this better. I'm hoping someone listens and takes this advice. Is at some point, months ago, Joe, they knew the president was going to go to Normandy for the 80th anniversary of the invasion, and he was going to give a speech. One would hope that somewhere, either in the White House, DOD, state, wherever it was within the administration, they were prepared for this. And certainly the campaign was prepared for this too, and the DNC and everybody else, to clip that footage as soon as it was done and push it into the appropriate audiences. For me, look, there are 15, 20% of Republican voters who don't like what Trump does on national security.
Yeah.
They are pro-NATO. They are pro-Ukraine. Listen, they are also pro-Israel. So I think it's an important distinction to understand. They're not Democrats, right? They are pro-Ukraine, pro-Israel, pro-NATO. They grew up, we call them Red Dawn conservatives. They grew up during the Cold War. They loved Reagan. They hated Russia. They don't like Putin. They don't like that Trump pals around with all these bad people. They are the people that need to see and hear that more than anyone. Because if we can keep them off of Trump, right, he can't win. If we can keep a bunch of them off of Trump and move a whole bunch more to Biden, Biden wins by a lot. And so this is where I'm hoping that the campaign, is understanding this. Look, presidential campaigns, have been on 3 of them. They're really hard, right? And you get everybody's giving you advice, right? And so it's really, it's difficult. And, especially on a reelection campaign, I could just as an anecdote, I left the White House in 2003. I went to FEMA before Katrina. 4 months later, I'm back at the reelection campaign. I'm sitting on a conference call with a guy who'd been at the White House, just before. He had just come over from the campaign too. And the people at the White House are talking to us like we're morons, right? And we hang up the phone and he's like, didn't we work there like 2 weeks ago? So like the White House is always in charge and they're always going to tell you whatever it is you're doing isn't good enough, right? Like this is just the sort of the nature of a re-election campaign. But they need to be on the stick. They have a lot of money. They have the president of the United States. They have all the assets of the federal government. So the idea that they're not communicating messages consistently and effectively, you know, they got to get on it. Yeah. And they got to get on it like yesterday.
Who are the messengers for that particular constituent? Like who can reach them? They're not going to look at my tweets. I mean, I don't think. Like,
I'm not even sure they're on Twitter. No, look, I would say this is, so there's a group out there called Veterans for Responsible Leadership, and the chairman is a guy named Dan Barkoff, and Dan is I don't think he's a Republican anymore, but he's a conservative guy, but pro-democracy first before anything. He went to the Naval Academy and became a Navy SEAL and served several tours, but because, Joe, that wasn't enough, then when he got out of the military, he went to Harvard Medical School and became an ER doctor, right? Oh. Yeah, exactly. But Dan is the perfect
hung like
messenger.
A horse too. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but he is the perfect messenger. And I actually had a conversation with him earlier this week. Like, he was a great messenger for us in 20 to those veterans, and guys like Dan are the perfect messenger. He is no progressive. He is no flaming liberal. This is a guy who has fought for our country. He has picked up and taken up arms on behalf of our country and our defense. He's probably lost sailors and probably lost friends in the process. He said something to me a couple of months ago when I interviewed him, you know, for all these guys who were like their 3%er t-shirts or they walk around all gunned up. He goes, you know, you had 20 years to join the military, right? We could have used you.
Right.
And so I think there are messengers like Dan out there who can and should communicate to these people, because these are people who they have bled. They have lost. Some of them have suffered and will never recover fully from the things that they've done on our behalf. And, you know, Joe Biden might not be your favorite, but I'll tell you this, he's a damn sight better than the alternative, right? Who thinks you're suckers and losers.
And to the suckers and losers point, because for me, this is another one of the greatest questions of all time, as somebody who is the sibling and daughter of those who, and aunt of and cousin of those who've served this country in uniform. I mean, I grew up basically on an army base, more or less. That's where my dad worked. This is near and dear to my heart, although I never served myself. And that's just because I probably would have been arrested or something for not wanting to do the things I was told to do by my superiors.
I tend to have a problem with authority.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm shocked about that about you. Same with me, which is probably also shocking. Yeah. But this has been this great mystery for me because he has, we all know he said suckers and losers, whether there's audio of it or not. John Kelly is someone who, despite whether I like him or not personally, he is someone who I believe. And what I believe he should also do is not just give an on the record interview off camera, but I think that he might have a huge impact. I don't need him to go campaign for Biden, but I think he might have a pretty huge impact if he just gives a Jake Tapper, I don't care, an interview on camera where he says these things that people are saying that's a lie. He didn't say, keep these war wounded amputees out of my sight. And John Kelly can say, actually, he did at Arlington National Cemetery. I think, and you cut that and put in an ad and run it in those Sinclair friggin' propaganda TV channels, and I think you're going to reach those people. I mean, I don't know.
No, think about how petty this man is. He also, I think he went to Japan, he had them cover up the stern of an American destroyer because it was the USS John McCain. Yeah. And he hated John McCain, and John McCain didn't have any love for Donald Trump. But McCain, his father and his grandfather all served honorably, right? His father and grandfather were both 4-star admirals, right? And McCain obviously was captured and served in a Vietnamese prison camp. But that's how petty he is, right? And McCain's sons, Jimmy and Jack, both served as well. So this is a situation in which an entire family has given generations of service to the country, and Donald Trump is so weak he didn't want to see the name on the back of a destroyer.
I mean, truly pathetic, but it represents everything he's not. And I think that's like really the end, because he went to military school, but he also tried to take put the flag back up at full mast, I think, after John McCain died, and he was shot down on that one. But I think he did try to put it back up prematurely because he's this little tiny, petty, nasty, horrible, vile creature. But the suckers and losers one is landing because he's talking about how he didn't say it now. And you know that when he says, I didn't say it, it means polling is saying, yeah, this is a problem for you.
No.
So,
Well, also, if he says I didn't say it, it means 100% that he did say it.
right.
Yes.
I didn't say lock her up. I didn't say lock her up. Oh my God. Can you imagine him saying, I didn't say lock her up. I didn't say Mexico will pay for the wall. It's like, Orwell. I mean, are you going to believe him or your own lying eyes and ears? It's insane. Okay. Well, wow. Okay. I think we covered a lot. So we just really have the rapid fire random question round left.
Okay.
Because I was going to ask you how you would advise the Biden campaign, and you already kind of answered all of that in every question that I asked, which is because you're so smart.
Oh.
You made my job so easy. All right. So there's a theme. These are rapid fire random question firsts. What was your first concert?
Eric Clapton.
Whoa. Okay, what songs were we talking about? Like Cocaine?
1990, it would have been the Journeyman album.
So is that like
it was more of a bluesy album. I don't think it produced a lot of his big hits. But I mean, he played Sunshine of Your Love and Layla and all that. So.
What year did you say?
1990.
So you would have been
14.
Oh my gosh. You were going to an Eric Clapton concert at 14?
Well, I mean, it was, my parents took me. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool, though. I mean,
yeah.
My first concert was Mr. A Great Adventure.
Hey, Mr. was a great band.
Yeah.
The Living Years, all of them, yeah.
Yeah, but where was the concert, did you say?
The Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., a building that no longer exists.
As so many of our former arenas, although she's still there, our jewel.
She's still hanging in.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do? It's small, but what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of MSG? Like, I mean, I never thought they'd get rid of Boston Garden, to be honest, or the Forum in Montreal, but I was wrong about Roe. So I'm wrong about a lot of things, but they can't get rid of MSG.
Hang around long enough, you'll be wrong about most things.
That's probably true. Okay. Your first job?
Bagging groceries at a Tom Thumb grocery store in Dallas, Texas.
Tom Thumb?
Yeah.
Huh. They still around?
I have no idea.
What did it pay? Do you remember?
Not that much.
No. And you were about 14?
15, yeah.
15, yeah. My first job was at an Irish teddy bear sports store.
That's very niche.
It was very niche. And I to this day have a scar because one of my jobs was to make the press-on t-shirts. And I'm not very disciplined and I don't listen and I don't follow directions very well. Also shocker. And so I would just burn t-shirts all day long and burn my hand, my arm, my wrists. Yeah.
Right.
I think it paid $8.75 an hour, I think. Okay. My son has his first job now, which is also very exciting, but he's in for, I love A World of Reckoning. Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. He's like throwing stuff away. I'm like, that's that. I just paid for that. And he's like, so what? I'm like, okay. When you get your job, let's talk about your so what when you're wasting stuff. Okay. Last one. First celebrity crush.
Oh, gosh.
Like whose poster did you have on your wall? Reed.
It's a great question. And I could not for the life of me tell you.
Not Farrah.
Oh, I know who it was.
Peggy
Fleming. No, I'm not quite that old. The girl on Charles in Charge, Nicole Eggert.
Oh, she was also on Baywatch.
Yes, later, but she got her start on Charles in Charge. Yes, Nicole Eggert.
Wait, she was pretty hot. I mean, I'm not saying
she's very pretty.
Yeah, I think that her cans were real. I'm thinking that was maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm going back to my Baywatch watching days and thinking about the way they bounce, but very pretty. Very pretty girl. Yeah. Look at me turning that all sorts of upside down. But Charles in Charge, Scott Baio, sadly, was a great show. Very popular show.
Well, so he's gone ultra MAGA, and then the other guy, Willie's like a hardcore Christian guy now.
Oh, he is? See, Willie I know Willie and you know Willie. That sounds weird from 8 is Enough. 8 is enough to fill our lives with love. That was the greatest show. I mean, there were so many of them. It's a good chance a lot of them are Trumpers now. But I didn't know Willie went full on like Christian.
Oh. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you're into.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the Different Strokes folks did too. I'm not positive.
That's more of a tragedy. That's more of a Hollywood true story.
So
True
sad.
Hollywood story.
She's passed. But Rob Lowe is my first celebrity crush. Oh my God, like stop.
He still looks the same.
I know. And I don't know. I don't know if the verdict is out on whether or not he's a Trumper or a horrible person or not. Like I can be on the West Wing and be a Trumper. I don't know. Is that possible?
I'm sure anything is.
Anything is possible, right? Like, some of these MAGA trolls were the fastest sperm. So anything is possible. On that note, sorry.
Don't be. That was funny.
So, Reed, tell the people about your Substack, The Home Front, and what else you're working on, please, before we say goodbye.
Yeah, sure. So I hope y'all check out the Home Front on Substack. I write a couple of times a week. I give lots of advice to different people who may not want it. Talk about things that I've seen throughout my career. Sometimes I try and be funny. If I try and be funny, I'm probably not. If I try not to be funny, I probably am. But I hope you'll check it out. Sign up, follow. You'd follow me on Twitter at Reed Galen, on Instagram and Threads at Reed_Galen USA. I'm all over the place. And Joe, thanks for having me on. And I hope to return the favor sometime soon.
Yes, please. And did you say early on you're on TikTok now? Are you really?
I am at TikTok. Same at Reed Galen. I am on TikTok. Yes, I have not figured out the algorithm, but I will tell you, just based on the little listener thing or the viewer thing, I have a particular, not surprising, a particular audience with women over the age of 55. So.
I'm shocked. As a woman who's approaching 50, I cannot imagine why the algorithm would do that. It just seems all sorts of backwards. I would have had you as a Gen Z Latino guy. Nope. But yeah, I'm going to follow you on TikTok because I figured out the algorithm and I can give you tips and tricks. So I'm not going to tell you on this.
People want to watch you. They don't want to watch me.
Well, again, Karen, random name in Peoria, 55, Karen, random name, is probably very interested in watching your TikToks, and now they know. So get ready, Reed. They're gonna want after dark Reed TikToks. Reed gone wild.
Well, that'll be just me sleeping probably. So.
Reed unleashed. It's like
exactly.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'm gonna follow you on TikTok and I'm gonna troll you over there. And thank you, Reed, again. You're so smart, makes me so fucking mad, but I really appreciate you, and I love your Substack, and people should read it because it is funny and it's also smart. You're not just good at this, you're a very good writer. So people should check that out for sure and subscribe.
Thank
you. Thank you, Reed. See you next time. Bye. Or later or whenever.
Whenever.
Around in the Turkish shower. I don't know.